Right now it feels like 103 degrees, and I've already got more than 18,000 steps. Not because I have to, not because I've set some sort of sadistic goal for myself, but quite frankly, I love walking, and even in the heat of summer, for me, this is enjoyable. But I know it's not enjoyable for everyone. In fact, I hear quite frequently from listeners to my audio podcast, Walking is Fitness, brand new episode, 10-minute episode every day that I record while I'm out walking to provide a little added motivation for you to take the walk, to remain consistent. And one of the things that I hear a lot from my listeners is how summertime is really a huge speed bump, and for some it's a brick wall. These are folks who love walking, who have a habit of walking, who have some momentum with this fitness activity, yet they hit summer and things go off the rails. So in this video, I want to talk about 5 things that I do that make walking more enjoyable in the summer. And I think, in fact I know, that number 5 is the most significant. Hi, I'm Dave. I'm not a medical doctor. Please, nothing in this video should be taken as specific medical advice for you. I recognize, I understand that walking in heat like this is dangerous. So please, before you head out, consult with your medical professional. Number 1 is hydration, staying hydrated. A couple of years ago, our next door neighbor was taken to the hospital in an ambulance. He was having some really nasty symptoms. And I don't know if it was he or his wife, probably his wife, who called 911. They took him to the hospital, and we were all wondering, is Bob okay? Because that kind of shakes you up when you see someone taken off in the ambulance. Well, Bob was home later that day. Turns out Bob was dehydrated. And in conversation, I forget whether it was with Bob or with his wife, and I've probably heard this before, but it just didn't register. But one of the things that came up in that conversation was how we lose our sense of thirst as we get older. And I realized that I only drink when I'm thirsty. And I need to be more intentional and more consistent about staying hydrated. So I set a goal that every day I'm going to drink in water half my body weight in ounces. And so staying hydrated is super important. It keeps you safe when you head out on hot summer days like this. And quite frankly, that's something that's needed year-round, not just in the heat of summer, but also in the cold of winter, staying hydrated. Number 2, even though I've got more than 18,000 steps, they haven't all happened with this heat index of 102 or 103 degrees. A bunch of those steps, in fact, most of them happened earlier this morning. So the coolest part of the day is right near sunrise. And before I left the house, I checked, and it felt like 83 degrees. So 20 degrees cooler earlier this morning. And I took advantage of that. And we'll probably take another walk or two later in the day after the sun begins to go down and the heat isn't quite as intense. So taking advantage of the cooler parts of the day is one of the ways that I enjoy walking in the summertime when it is this hot. Number 3, where I walk. Now, right now, I'm walking in the full sunshine to make a point. Up ahead is shade. And I'm looking forward to reaching that shade because the difference between being in full sunlight and being in shade is pretty tremendous. So one of the things that I do when I'm taking walks in the summertime is I will pick shady routes, particularly if it's later in the day. In the morning, early morning, around sunrise, doesn't really matter that much. But later in the day, once the sun has gotten straight overhead and the heat is just ramping up, the difference between being in full sun and being in shade is pretty dramatic. So I am intentional about walking along shady routes when it's the heat of summer. Number 4, what I wear makes a huge difference. So this is a athletic performance shirt, very lightweight. It's breathable. It wicks away the sweat. The difference between this and, say, a cotton t-shirt is pretty dramatic. I wear lightweight shorts on days like today instead of my usual uniform of cargo shorts. Those are heavy. Those are thick. Those are uncomfortable on days like today. And full brimmed hat. Not only does this provide protection from the sun, because I've had skin cancer on my nose now twice, it also, as you can see, my head is in the shade, and so it makes me more comfortable. So what I'm wearing as I'm walking on days like today is huge. I'm about to go from the full sun. Yeah, the difference is great. Now, before I get to number 5, I want to circle back to the dangers of walking in hot heat like this. And for some, this is not advisable. And so please understand and talk to a medical professional before you just head out on hot days like this. And there's always the option of walking inside on a treadmill. If you don't have access to a treadmill, you can walk around the house, you can walk around work, you can go to a big box store, take walks around the perimeter. You can even walk in place. The benefits from walking inside are still there. They're still significant. So you can still take advantage of walking as a fitness activity by walking inside when it's too hot outside. All right, number 5. And I said, for me, this is probably the most significant. So this walk in the middle of the day with the heat index over 100 degrees is intentional. It's intentional because I don't want to lose the ability to walk in really hot conditions. My wife and I were talking about this the other day, and she called it heat training. We're training to walk when it's really hot. And so I'll take these short walks in the heat of the day in summertime, so I don't lose the ability, don't lose the desire to walk when it's super hot. And here's what it really does. It makes those walks earlier in the day, later in the day, it makes them, even when it's hot, it makes those walks more comfortable. Because I've been training for really hot conditions, and 20 degrees cooler than this now feels comfortable. And it makes walking in the summertime, quite frankly, more enjoyable.